We live in a world that teaches men to treat love like a business transaction. From the time we're old enough to notice girls, we're given this elaborate instruction manual on how to get them. Be confident but not too eager. Show interest but maintain mystery. Text back but not too quickly. It's like we're training for some corporate merger instead of trying to connect with another human being. I watch young men now, and it breaks my heart sometimes. They've turned dating into this performance art where they're constantly calculating their next move. They read books about game theory and attraction psychology as if women were some kind of puzzle to be solved rather than people to be known. They practice their conversations in mirrors, rehearse their stories, manufacture their spontaneity. And society rewards this nonsense. We celebrate the man who plays hard to get, and shame the one who shows genuine interest too early. We've created this mythology that real men don't need anyone, that independence is strength and vulnerability is weakness. So men learn to hide their hearts behind strategies and statistics. I remember being taught these rules myself. Never call on the same day. Always end the conversation first. Keep them guessing. Make yourself scarce so they'll appreciate you more. It's like we're training salesmen, not lovers. And the cruel irony is that all this strategic distance, but it works for all the wrong reasons. When you're playing games, you attract people who want to play games. When you're performing confidence, you attract people who are impressed by performances. When you're withholding your true self, you end up with someone who's fallen in love with your mask, not your face. The really tragic part is how this affects us internally. All this emotional armor we're taught to wear, it doesn't just protect us from others. It protects us from ourselves. We become so good at not feeling, at not needing, at not caring too deeply, that we forget how to recognize genuine connection when it's standing right in front of us. I've watched men sabotage beautiful relationships because they were so invested in maintaining their emotional independence that they couldn't recognize interdependence as a gift. They'd rather be right about not needing anyone than be happy with someone who actually saw them. And the women. They learn to play along with this game because they have to. They learn to mirror our emotional distance, to match our strategic withholding, to pretend they don't care as much as they do. So we end up with these elaborate dances where two people who genuinely like each other spend months pretending they don't, just to follow some invisible social script about how attraction is supposed to work. But here's what I've discovered. All this careful orchestration, all these rules and strategies and protective mechanisms, they only work until they don't, until you meet someone whose presence is so genuine, so unguarded, so refreshingly real that all your defenses start to feel not protective, but silly. She's not trying to win the game because she's not playing the game. She's just living her life, being herself, enjoying conversations because they're interesting, not because they might lead somewhere strategic. And suddenly all your calculated moves feel like trying to dance to music she's not even hearing. This is when men realize that all our training was for the wrong sport. We've been preparing for chess, but love is actually jazz. It's improvisation, not strategy. It's presence, not performance. It's about harmonizing with someone else's rhythm, not controlling the tempo. The fortress of control we've built around our hearts, it wasn't keeping us safe. It was keeping us alone. And when she shows up with no interest in storming our walls, no agenda to tear down our defenses, but simply an invitation to step outside and dance, we realize the fortress was never protection. It was prison. There's always a moment. It's a recognition that happens somewhere deeper than thought. This is when all the masculine programming starts to short circuit. Everything we've been taught about maintaining power in relationships, about never showing our cards too early, about keeping our options open, it all becomes background noise, because in that moment of recognition, keeping options open feels like choosing to stay hungry when there's a feast in front of you. The surrender isn't to her exactly. It's to the truth of what we're feeling. It's admitting that all our strategies for staying safe were actually keeping us from what we really wanted. It's recognizing that the vulnerability we've been so carefully avoiding isn't weakness. It's the only way to actually connect with another human being. And here's the paradox that blows most men's minds. The moment we stop trying to maintain control, we feel more powerful than we ever have. Not power over her, but power with her. Not the power to manipulate or withhold, but the power to choose fully, to commit completely, to love without reservation. This is when the hunting stops and the choosing begins. When a man realizes he doesn't want to keep searching for someone better because he's found someone real, when he stops asking, "What can she do for me?" and starts asking, "What can we create together?" the shift happens in his whole body. The way he looks at her changes. The way he talks about the future changes. It's not that he becomes a different person. It's that he becomes more himself than he's ever been. All the energy he used to spend on maintaining emotional distance, on calculating his next move, on protecting himself from caring too much. They become more themselves in each other's presence, not less. This is when love stops being something that happens to you and becomes something you do together. A choice you make every day, not because you have to, but because you want to. Because you've finally found someone worth dropping all your masks for. So here we are, at the end of this exploration, and I want you to know something. If you're a woman listening to this, wondering when or if this moment will happen with someone in your life, you can't force it. You can't strategize your way into being the one who breaks down his walls. Because the moment I've been describing isn't about perfect timing or saying the right words or being the ideal woman. It's about being authentically yourself and trusting that the right person will recognize that authenticity for the gift it is. I know how frustrating this can be. I've watched women exhaust themselves trying to be everything they think a man wants, shape-shifting through different personalities, hoping one will stick. But here's what I've learned from decades of observing human nature. The woman who triggers this transformation isn't the one who's trying hardest to please. She's the one who's most comfortable being herself, flaws and all. And if you're a man listening, feeling the weight of recognition in these words, if you're realizing that you've been living behind walls you didn't even know you'd built, or if you've already had that moment of surrender I've been describing, know that this vulnerability isn't something to be ashamed of. It's something to be proud of. In a world that teaches men to be emotional islands, choosing connection takes real courage. I think about all the men I know who found this kind of love later in life, after years of thinking they were built differently, that they weren't the marrying type, that they needed their freedom more than they needed companionship. They'll tell you now that they weren't protecting their freedom, they were protecting their fear, and the day they stopped protecting that fear was the day their real life began. The beautiful thing about this transformation is how it ripples outward. When a man learns to love one woman completely, he becomes more loving toward everyone. When he stops defending against vulnerability, he becomes more present with his friends, more patient with his family, more generous with strangers. Love isn't a finite resource that gets depleted when you give too much to one person. It's more like a muscle that gets stronger with use. And if you're still looking, still hoping, still believing that somewhere out there is someone who will see you clearly and love you anyway, keep that hope alive. But while you're waiting, love yourself with the same intensity you're hoping to receive from someone else. Because the person worth waiting for isn't looking for someone who needs them to feel complete. They're looking for someone who chooses them from a place of wholeness. This is what I wish for you, that you experience love not as something that completes you, but as something that celebrates who you already are. That you find someone who doesn't fix your broken pieces, but who loves the beautiful mosaic you've already become. Someone who doesn't slow your journey, but who walks beside you, creating new adventures together.